guys, Rachel here with Yarn at Play Crochet. So today I'm going to do a tutorial for you on how to crochet this block stitch cowl. Now this is just a tube style cowl, so it's not going to have a V or anything to it, but it is a really fun and pretty block stitch cowl that you can wear all winter and fall long, and it looks really pretty on, and it's very squishy and cozy. So this one I worked up and I believe I had used some yarn from the Dollar Tree when I made this one, but this is just a mock-up that I will show you kind of what that looks like. And then the colors that I'm going to use for the tutorial are these three. These are just some scrap yarns that I had on hand that I thought kind of looked fun together, so I can't give you details on these yarns, sorry. But it should look really fun and for our purposes work into a really pretty cowl scarf. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to give you all of the numbers for what you need to do and how you're going to use this. But I am going to be using, I'm not going to be doing a full giant cowl. I'm just going to work it up in a swatch and then tell you how to do all the joining and everything else. So I will make sure that you know how to fully assemble the cowl in this tutorial. And if you need further joining instructions as we go, I can give you those as well. But as far as just the basics of the block stitch, I'm just going to show you how to swatch that up here in a minute. Okay, so for the actual cowl scarf, the total number of chains that you are going to want to do for your foundation row is going to be 90 chains. And you are going to just be working this as a flat panel, and then we're going to just sew the seam together at the end. So what you want to start is 90 chains in order to get the correct length of your foundation chain to make this size cowl neck scarf. So for our purposes today, I'm just going to swatch up a sample swatch, but if you wanted to change the size of your cowl, making it more snug or more loose, this stitch is worked up in multiples of 3. So just keep that in mind. Any multiple of 3 in your chaining will work for this. And that is the only thing that you really need to know. And you can ultimately make it as long or as short as you want to. But you want to be working in multiples of 3. So let's go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now I'll do that a little bit longer. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We'll do 3 more. And that should get me a good size sample swatch so you guys can see exactly how this will work up. So what we're going to do is we are going to snip our yarn here. Well, actually, no, we don't need to. I take that back. So we're not going to cut our yarn here because we are on our foundation chain. So we can just turn our corner here. Normally you would have to cut your yarn at the end of every chain, or at the end of every row. So this row this pattern you're gonna have lots and lots of ends to weave in, but ultimately it is worth it once you get it all finished. So chain 1, so that'll be a multiple of 3 plus 1 for your foundation, and then you turn your corner, and then you're going to, in that, not the first chain here, but in your second chain, you're gonna single crochet and single crochet into the next chain as well. And then you're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then you're going to skip 2 chains here. So skip this one here, skip that one there, and then single crochet into that third chain. So we're creating the foundations for our blocks here. So this is where we're going to get our blocks of color, or our main color is going to work into these gap spaces, and then we are going to add in our colors as we go in these in the same sort of pattern. So it's going to be chain 2 and then single crochet for when we change colors. But for right now, we're just focusing on laying the spaces for our double crochet blocks. So go ahead and chain 2, 1, 2, and then skip 2, 1, 2, and then into that third chain, single crochet, chain 2 again, 1, 2, skip 2, 1, 2, and into that third chain, single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and into that third chain, single crochet, and keep doing this all the way until you get to the end. 1, 2, 3. Chain 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Now we're almost at the end of our chain here, so we're going to do the same thing that we did before. You're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then you're going to skip 2, 1, 2, and single crochet into that third chain, and then single crochet into that final chain as well to finish off the row. So that is where we're at. That is what this should be looking like at this point. You can see how we've created our gaps for our double crochet blocks to go into. And now we're going to turn the corner one more time, and we're going to work our double crochet blocks back along our row here. So this is just how the foundation works up. Once we actually get into color changes, it's going to work up a little bit differently. So stick with me here. And I apologize if you can hear very loud cars rolling down the street. I don't know why they're so loud outside tonight, but if you hear that in the background, my apologies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I like to call a stacked single turn. I don't know what the actual name for this is, but this is how I like to turn when I'm trying to do a double crochet turn. So you can always just chain 3 to make your turn, but I find that that looks a little bit skinny on my edge, especially with the block stitch. So I'm going to do a stacked single crochet turn, and to do that you chain 1 and then turn your piece, and then do a single crochet into that very first stitch right there, and then what you're going to do is you're going to put your hook through this piece of yarn, that front V shape, on your single crochet right there, and then pull up a loop. So you have 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through both. So I don't know what the actual name for that is. I call that a stacked single crochet turn, but it just gives a little bit more bulk to this stitch here, especially since you're going to be sewing this edge line together into a circle shape to make your cowl once you're all done. So that just gives it a little bit more yarn for you to sew into, a little more bulk to that turn. Like I said, you can do the 3 single crochets if you prefer, or the 3 chain stitches, but I just like to do it that way. So I'll show it to you one more time. So you're right here, you just finished your last single crochet, so chain 1, turn your work into that very first space, go ahead and single crochet, and then into that little front V piece of yarn, put your hook through, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. All right. Now what we're going to do is, now that we're here, we are going to go and do our double crochet stitches into our gap spaces here. So go ahead and work a block of 3 double crochet stitches, skipping this first single crochet here, and go and work into this big block stitch here. So do a double crochet, three times into that gap space. Now you're not going to chain or do anything like that. You went direct from your turn stitch into this block, and you're going to keep doing that all the way along. You're not going to add chains between your blocks. So make another block, 3 double crochet block into that next big gap space that you made with your chains on the previous row. And then keep doing that all the way across. So 3 double crochet into that next big black space. And keep doing your 3 double crochet blocks all the way until you get to your last block here, and then I will meet you right there. Okay, so we've gotten to the end of our row here. We've done our last 3 double crochet block into our last space, and we are left with 2 single crochet at the end of our row. Now we're just going to skip this first single crochet right here, and you're going to do a double crochet into the second single crochet right here. Just like that, and that is going to finish off this row. And now we are going to be changing colors, and now I have done this stitch where you do like the color change join to turn the corner and everything else. I just don't like that as much. I feel like it makes my edges look a little crooked, and I just don't prefer that with this stitch in particular. If it were a different stitch, it probably wouldn't bother me so much, but with this stitch, I don't prefer that. So I'm going to go ahead and just chain 1, snip off my yarn here with a nice long tail so it'll be easy to sew in, and snug that down. Okay, so now that we've made it this far with our work, we've done our foundation chain, we've done our first row of single crochet chain 2s, and we've done our first row of block stitches, those 3 double crochet blocks. We're going to add our color change. So go ahead and turn your work. And I'm going to grab this purple for my first color change. Make a slip knot and put it right on your hook, leaving a tail long enough that it'll be easy to weave in. And put your slip knot on your hook. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a standing stitch single crochet into this first double crochet stitch right here. So put your hook in that first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 to do your single crochet standing stitch in that first double crochet stitch, and then you're going to do a single crochet again into that next big gap space that's right there. So you should have a single crochet into the double crochet and a single crochet into this big gap space right here. And now you're going to chain 2, 1, 2, And then you are going to single crochet into this next gap space right here between your double crochet blocks. So that is what is going to form your little kind of like, they're not spike stitches, but they kind of look like spike stitches, where they kind of pull the color a little bit farther down and create more of a distinct look to it. And kind of gives it that confetti effect. So that's what's going to give this here. So you can see that is what is giving us a color in between these spaces, and these are the big double crochet blocks. So chain 2 and single crochet into your space, chain 2, single crochet into your space, chain 2, single crochet into the space, chain 2, and now that we're here at the end, we're going to single crochet into this space, and then you need to single crochet into the last stitch of the round. And now the last stitch of the round, because we did our standing or our stacked single crochet stitch here, you might be a little less familiar with how to see where our next stitch is. So if you take your work and you just kind of turn it a little bit, you'll see that first set of V's right there. Those are the V's that we're picking up for this stitch. So they'll be curved down slightly, but that is the last stitch of our row. So put your hook through, pick up both of those little pieces of yarn that make that V, and do your last single crochet into that last stitch. All right, and then we are going to color change again. So chain 1, cut off the tail long enough to sew in, pull through, and snug it down. And now you're going to turn your work. And the reason why we turn our work, even though we could just go back to the beginning and keep going straight across, I found that turning your work and working it this way will keep your rows straighter. So it'll keep everything lined up a little bit. When I didn't do that and I just went back to the beginning of the row, it kind of made my work go on a slant. So that's why we're turning our work, even though we aren't really working in turned rows, like turned edge rows like we normally would. So go ahead and grab your main color again. Make a slip knot. Put that on your hook. And now we are going to do a standing double crochet stitch into this first single crochet stitch right here. Now, if you've are not familiar with doing a standing double crochet, you just work the double crochet stitch exactly like you would any other. It's just that you're not working from a place where it's already there. So you're gonna have to kind of, I use my middle finger to kind of hold my knot straight, and then I yarn over so that my slip knot doesn't pull things around. And then I poke it through that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And that is your standing double crochet stitch. So it might feel a little tricky at first, but once you get used to it, it's very simple. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to start working our double crochet block. So don't chain anything, just skip this stitch right here, this single crochet, and start doing your double crochets into this space right here. And you're doing 3 double crochet blocks, just like you did on the previous row. And you're going to do that all the way across until you get to the end of your row. And when you get to the end of your row, I will show you where we go from there. All right, so I'm at the end of my row and I just finished doing my last 3 double crochet block into my last space here. And to finish out the row, what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 more double crochet into the very last single crochet stitch of this row. Just like that. And then you're going to do a chain, trim your yarn, pull through, because we are going to color change again. So turn your work, and you can see how it's looking on our right side facing up here. It's starting to look really nice, but honestly this is reversible. It looks great on both sides. So let's grab our next color. Now I chose, when I made this, to do it in 3 colors, but ultimately you can use as many or as few colors as you like. You can even change up the colors of your blocks if you want to and really get creative with it and do like stripes where like your color here is the same, but then you change the color of your blocks. You can do it however you want to. This is an extremely versatile stitch that can be worked up in all kinds of different ways to create really cool color combinations and patterns. So get creative with it and have fun. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do exactly like we did with our purple row here. We're gonna do a standing single crochet into that first double crochet stitch. And then single crochet into that gap space there. And then chain 2. And single crochet into the gap space. Chain 2. Single crochet into the gap space. And keep doing that all the way along. I am hoping that at this point you have the basic pattern down. It is a very simple pattern and it is a very easy 2 row repeat. And once you get used to it, it goes really, really quickly. And this cowl doesn't really take too terrible long to work up, especially in this just simple pattern. Honestly, what takes the longest is working in your ends and the sewing up at the end. But it goes really quickly to stitch up. So now that I'm here at the end, I did my last single crochet stitch into my gap, and I am going to do a single crochet stitch into the top of that double crochet. And I'm going to tie my yarn off here so I can color change back to my main yarn. Now I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about how to do all of that joining to turn it into a cowl while I just sit here and stitch up a little more for you. So the best way to do that I found was just to work it in like a regular sewing stitch. Like, what is it though? It's not a running stitch, it's a whip stitch. And a whip stitch, after you weave in all your ends. So when you get to the length or the height that you want your cowl to be, what you're going to do is you're going to weave in all of these tails that we've created while we've been working this up in a panel, which takes a long time and is a pain in the butt, and I wasn't sure if I would think that it was worth it in the end, but I did, which is why I'm doing a tutorial on this, because even though you have a ton of ends to weave in, I am really happy with how this cowl turned out, and I think it is worth sewing in all of those ends. So once you sew in all those ends, then you are going to just take your main color of yarn and just do a whip stitch all the way down the edge to connect it so it is just a big long tube. And I will show you here in just a second, once I get to the end of this row, what that join looks like. Now you can see the join. I'm not going to lie to you and say that you can't see the join. It's not an invisible join, but I don't really think that trying to work this stitch in the round will yield great results. I feel like you might get some you might get some diagonal lean to your stitch, And so even though it won't give you an invisible join and it is a pain to weave in all those ends, I personally think that it's worth it to get a nice straight block and not have to worry about working this up in the round. So if you are feeling adventurous and you want to try and work this up in the round, I'm sure that you probably can do it. I didn't. I figured that might be more trouble than it was worth. So I just weaved in my ends and did it that way. So now that I'm at the end, I'm going to do a double crochet into that last stitch there, just like I did on the previous row. Now I will show you how to cap this off. So I will show you here. Say we did our foundation, we worked our blocks all the way up, we're at the top, and we want to finish this off. Now I want the top of my thing to look exactly like the bottom. So what I'm going to do here, because I did that foundation at the bottom with the chain, and then I did my chain single crochets down here to establish kind of that base, I'm going to do the same thing up on top to really make it look even. And so you don't have like an extra stripe at the bottom here, and you don't have that extra row on the top here. So in order to do that, when you get as many blocks as you would like to have, what you do is you chain one, you turn your work, you do a single crochet in that first double crochet space, and a single crochet into that first gap. And then you do just like you did on every other row, you chain two, and single crochet into those gap spaces all the way across to finish off the top of your cowl. And ultimately you can make your cowl as long or as short as you want it to be, but I will count up and I will tell you exactly how many rows I did for mine. I found it to be a good height for me, but you can ultimately do as many or as few as you wish. This is a pattern that's, like I said, really flexible, really adaptable, and really nice to work up. And it looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to yarn over here, cut off my end, and pull through. And then, like I said, I would weave in all of my ends. And then I would just take it and I would just do a whip stitch down this edge once my ends are all woven in. So you got to do the weaving in first, and then you sew it so it's that nice little tube, and it will be a cowl. So that is what this looks like. And I'll show you the join on the back. Here's that join. So there is the join on the back of my piece. Like I said, it's not invisible. You can tell it's there. But if that's on the back of your head, like, and it's all bunched up because it's a cowl, it's going to be scrunchied. People aren't going to be seeing that join in a huge obvious way. And I don't personally think it's a huge deal. If you come up with a better way to make a more invisible join, please tell me in the comments. I'd love to know. But for me, I think that looks okay. And for what I was going for, I was really happy with how it turned out. So I did a total of, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 rows of blocks. So the big double crochet blocks. So if that is how you want to count how big this is, you would do 14 double crochet rows total. And then it would be the correct height for what this cowl is. But yeah, that's all there is to it. It's a really simple, basic, beautiful stitch. And I hope that you experiment with it, that you have fun with it, and that you turn it into something that is really, really beautiful. Because I think that this would be absolutely stunning in so many different color varieties and all the things that you can think of. So I hope that this was helpful. If you found this content helpful, go ahead and give this video a like. And if you are interested, subscribe to my channel for in-depth yarn reviews, crochet podcasts, and more tutorials like this one. I upload Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 9 a.m. Eastern. All right, thanks so much for hanging out, guys. Have a great night. Bye.